Welcome to another beautiful segment. Welcome to another amazing episode. If you are just joining me for the first time, if you are just first and foremost, this is a new show. So I know a lot of you must have seen my journalism video. You're used to seeing my other type of videos, and once in a while you see me speak on religious. Let's stay here. I guess this is a sweet spot where the camera catches us. Once in a while, you see me talk about religious matter, but there is a need for spirituality at this time. In case you are not aware, a cross-dresser got murdered in Nigeria, and I reported that news on my journalism and LGBTQ channel. You could check it out if you love to see my other content. But this episode and this series is dedicated solely to spirituality, and let us narrow it down a bit to Christianity and to our Christian faith. Like most of you, we were born into Christian home. We were told how to dress. We were told how to conduct ourselves. We were told a lot of things that will make God happy. But I want us to start from the very first beginning. If you own a Bible, or if you've read the Bible, you know the Bible contains a total of 36 or 60, 36 Old Testament, and I think 60 around. Is it 36 or 68 books? I can't remember right now, but I know it's between 36 to 68 books the Bible contains. But all I'm trying to say is that if you've read the Bible, you know that we have Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Kings, First Kings, Second Kings, the Psalms, the books of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Songs to Solomon, you name them. I think I'm Malachi, I'm forgetting a lot. Then if you go to the New Testament, even Esther is in the Old Testament. So if you go to the Old Testament, you will see a lot of books in the Old Testament. If you go to the New Testament, we'll have books like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, what other book do we have in the New Testament? Revelation, the book of Jude, I think Galatians, you name it. I didn't think of reciting all of the books in the Bible when creating this episode. But my point being that let's go to the very first beginning, which is Genesis and the creation story. If you are like me, you have known only one creation story, but I have happened to read a lot of, or have read a lot of creation story. The one creation story I first read is the book of Genesis, where the Bible tells us that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form, and the Spirit of God moved. And there was darkness on earth when God created earth. But before we jump into that story, the second creation story I read is the book of Hercules and the rest of them, the Greek mythologies. That's the word I was looking for. The Greek mythologies. I've read the Greek mythology of how two goddesses, Zeus and his sister, or Zeus and semi-gods, came down, they married, they formed earth, they began to create a play universe where they could see their creation and where they could play with man. Regardless of what creation story is, we also have the Big Bang theory, where we have that there was a big bang, and then as the Big Bang happened, all the molecules on earth and the atoms of air on earth began to emerge themselves together, and we have, in case you're wondering what I'm looking at, I think one of my neighbor's dog is barking. We had a Big Bang, theory where everything just came to be. But let's us dissect the creation story in this episode. So this episode is totally dedicated to the creation story.
Anglican priest. Are you not under the same Bible too? Because there are scriptures like 1 Corinthians, is it 6 verse 9, that says, he that lies with a man is an abomination unto God. And so if the Bible is what governs the church, then how do you separate it? They will say, first of all, is it even a sin? Because it's in the Bible.
Right. First of all, the Bible. Right. What you quoted is a translation of the Bible. It's not the original Greek or Hebrew.
Now let's talk about the first creation story, the Big Bang theory, where there was nothing. First and foremost, it makes no sense because, like, logically thinking, everything we see on earth, from the house we live in to the aeroplanes we fly to the cars we drive to the roads we walk on, were planned, structured, and executed. So it makes no sense to say there was nothing and something became of nothing. Then what was the something that was nothing that became something?
The universe is everything, from the tiniest particles to the largest galaxies to the very existence of space, time, and life. But how did it all begin? The origin of the universe is the origin of everything. Multiple scientific theories, plus creation myths from around the world, have tried to explain its mysterious genesis. However, the most widely accepted explanation is the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory states that the universe began as a hot and infinitely dense point. Only a few millimeters wide, it was similar to a supercharged black hole. About 13.7 billion years ago, this tiny singularity violently exploded. And it is from this explosion, this bang, that all matter, energy, space, and time were created. What happened next were two major stages of the universe's evolution. Called the radiation and matter eras, they're defined by key events that helped shape the universe. First came the radiation era, named for the dominance of radiation right after the Big Bang. This era is made of smaller stages, called epochs, that occurred within the universe's first tens of thousands of years. The earliest is the Planck epoch. No matter existed in the universe at this time, only energy and the ancestor to the four forces of nature, the superforce. At the end of this stage, however, a key event occurred in which gravity split away from the superforce. Next came the Grand Unification epoch, named for the three remaining unified forces of nature. This epoch ended when one of those forces, called strong or strong nuclear, broke away. Then, the inflationary epoch began, during which the universe rapidly expanded. Almost instantly, it grew from the size of an atom to the size of a grapefruit. The universe at this time was piping hot, and it churned with electrons, quarks, and other particles. Then came the electroweak epoch, when the last two forces, electromagnetic and weak, finally split off. During the next stage, the quark epoch, all of the universe's ingredients were present. However, the universe was still too hot and dense for subatomic particles to form. Then, in the hadron epoch, the universe cooled down enough for quarks to bind together and form protons and neutrons. In the lepton and nuclear epochs, the radiation era's last two stages, the protons and neutrons underwent a significant change. They fused and created nuclei, and in doing so, they created the first chemical element in the universe, helium.
But let us look also at the Bible story. The Bible story says, in the beginning, God created the earth. In case of you, those of you that say, but where is your Bible? Let us bring out our Bible so that it doesn't look like I'm just reading out from nothing. Our Bible is right here. So let's read from the King James version of the Bible, because that is the version most of you like to read, and I'm dusting my Bible. Yes, I I have read the Bible so many times that sometimes I have to, you know, look for it to read it because I know what it contains mostly. So in Genesis chapter 1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water." Now let's go back to chapter 1 verse 1. It says, "In the beginning God." So in the beginning God. It did not say God was created. It says in the beginning God had already existed. So if you're wondering, the Bible story says in the beginning God has already been there. So God is not created in the creation story, but it says God then created the heaven and the earth. Now, many Christians believe that God lives in heaven, and most of us believe that God lives in the seventh heaven. If God being before the beginning of creation, and God is the one who created the heavens, how then can he live in the heaven? It only makes logical sense that God will live outside of his creation. It's just like saying God lives on earth after creating earth. It makes no sense. God could visit earth, God could move around earth, but for God to live on earth makes no theological or logical reason. So many of us have been taught wrong. God does not live in heaven.
Listen, God does not live in heaven. Seller. God does not live in heaven. So that's why your goal should not be heaven. If your goal is heaven, it's a stupid goal.
We are going to find out where God truly lives. It says, then he created the heavens and then he created the earth. It says one thing in verse 2, according to your Bible. It says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the surface. There was something that was there from beginning, darkness. So there was never light. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves from verse 2 is, if darkness was upon the surface of the earth and God was there, is God not supposed to be the light on earth? So if God wasn't the light and there was total darkness, where then did light come? Now it says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the surface of the water. Did God create the water? Or was God part of the molecule of water? That is another question that needs to ask from verse 2. Because he never said that God created the water. It says the Spirit of God moved. He only created the heavens and the earth. Did he create everything that was already in the heavens and everything on earth already? Or did he just create the physical earth and the physical heavens? Because it tells us then in verse 2, it says there are certain things. It says the earth had no form. It means the earth wasn't round. The earth had no shape. There was nothing on earth, and it was very void. It had no substance. It wasn't solidified. It says darkness then was upon the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. Verse 3 says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So darkness came before light. No matter what you're going through, no matter the season in your life, no matter where you have been, I want to announce to you that there will always be darkness before light. There will always be failures before success. There will always be trials before celebration. So if you're listening and you're in this Bible study, I want you to understand that darkness will always come before light. Light cannot come and darkness. No, darkness will come. So what keeps you going is that as the darkness is there, rejoicing over your life, Verse 3 said, and God said. So there will always be a final voice over every situation in your life. There will always be a final decision. It's just like when you are convicted of a crime and you are stopped by a police officer. A young man was driving, and he was driving all the way from the university down to his house, and he was driving a very flamboyant car, but he did a dangerous change of lane, and an officer was behind him. And as he drove, the officer put on his siren, and he began to chase after this young man. He successfully stopped this young man and questioned him for his driver's license and etc. He had all his particular of his vehicle, he had his license, he had his papers, he had his insurance, everything was good. The officer then said, you did a dangerous change of lane. Therefore, I'm going to give you a ticket and you're going to appear before a judge. The young man had to appear before a judge. So you may be going through a situation and you might be guilty of certain things in your life. But I want you to understand that even if you are a loyal captive of darkness, even if darkness has a loyal legal right over you, there is always a voice, the voice of the judge. Just as the judge says to that young man, I have seen all your case, but you know one thing? For one reason, I understand whatever that had made you speed and change your lane like that is for a just reason. Little did we know that his wife was in labor and he needed to get to his wife as soon as possible. That was what drove him to go beyond the speed limit. I don't know where you are in your life, but I want you to know that God will speak a voice, and that voice will be, let there be light, and the light will shine in the midst of darkness.
The finish me, the touch the